Does everyone have a chair? We have a few extras. Welcome to the 11th Historic Preservation, wow, I've got this now. The Historic Preservation Summit. The first one was held in 2004. So here we are today. We have, well, just welcome to all of you. I'm not going to start calling names because I'll leave too many people out. Would you like to eat? The buffet is set up at the back of the room. You can use both sides of the table. Feel free. Enjoy.
Pretty comfortable. Probably can't stand on our own, but in a district.
If Dr. Geisel and Dr. Dulaney are ready, we're ready for you.
We're going to do it separately. She said we could do anything we like. Well, I'd like to go home. So, I always love that. And, you know, I love the fact that my name just dies everywhere I go. I tell people how to pronounce it, and then they try to correct that and make it good. But it's pronounced Geisel because somehow Geisel sounds kind of greasy. Yeah. There's only been one really famous Geisel, and that, I guess, we tried to figure out what the relationship is, but I think I'm a grandnephew. So many of you like Dr. Seuss with someone I knew. And I just told her the sad story that I was an heir of all of his work, and unfortunately he married 2 years before he died, and she had children, and they got everything. And I told them the worst part is that they're really nice. So it's kind of a sad story. What I'm going to talk about briefly is really more observations than historical perspective and that kind of thing. It has to do with kind of a personal experience in dealing in the Black community over the years, and in research and efforts to find information and documentation about certain perspectives on history, particularly when it comes to the experience of Black Americans, that is difficult to find, that you go searching. A number of years ago, I was doing a study on I was in Nashville, Tennessee, and I started a study on the decision to desegregate. Desegregation was just beginning in this country as a part of the law of the land, and after reviewing the literature, in the very first 5 years, I found in the sociological literature and in political science literature over 2,400 articles dealing with the implications and impacts of desegregation. 2 were from a Black perspective. 2. So I did a study on the decision to desegregate from the Black perspective, and interviewing people as to why they would put their children through that kind of effort and so forth. I then tried to examine school systems to determine whether the traditions of the Black schools that were gradually being closed, or the principals, or some of their school mascots, how many of those traditions were included in the desegregation's order. And out of 1,400 orders, not one, 0. That just disappeared. And immediately the question became, what are the implications of losing historically and of losing a tradition, a kind of a sense of who we are, of where we're going, that we simply just walked away from it. It was as if it didn't happen. We are fortunate in Tarrant County with Terrell's High School in that we still have living alumni who maintain what that tradition was. We have these teachers who were famous there and had certain kinds of traditions and so forth, but gradually we will lose them if we're not very, very careful. And it isn't just a question of people, it's a question of ways things happen and how that happens. Later in the early 70s, I was a part of what was called the Dallas Alliance, and Dallas at that time was in a little trouble. So a group had been formed representing 180 organizations, and we had the city council, we had the county government, and so forth. And the question came, what are the three major issues of Dallas? And it was community regeneration and maintenance, criminal justice reform, and school desegregation. So I figured once we could get rid of those small problems, we could move on to something bigger. And so we had to enter the court to desegregate the Dallas schools. And it was curious because Nolan Estes was the superintendent at that time, and I had met him years earlier when I was doing a study on Southern youth. I had a study going the retardation of Southern youth, and it was my hypothesis that because of segregation, the entire South were retards. I was a nice, unbiased young scholar, and I had received, believe it or not, a grant to study just that. And he had been working in Chattanooga. He was my liaison there because I'm studying the Chattanooga schools. And at that time, they were completely separated in the high school level. But they had not yet, they were doing the grade a year program, so it was totally separated. So the high school youngsters did not see each other by race. And what I did was I had 1,000 white and 1,000 African American students for a solid week. And we talked with them about the world of work and opportunities and things that might happen. And they would have to then, by category, like professional, technical, and tenure, identify jobs. And they had, in order to get a correct score, they had to know 6 things. I won't tell you all 6, but they had to know how you got the job. They had to know what kind of place would employ you. They had to know what kind of training that was required. They had to know what kind of pay you might receive. They had to know kind of where the jobs were. And what we found was a very interesting thing. Every African American student could correctly identify approximately 500 jobs. Every Anglo student, every white student, could identify in separate schools about 500 jobs. There was no difference in terms of the number of jobs they could identify correctly. But there was a curious difference. If you know 25 jobs I don't know, I know 25 you don't know, and we add up to 550. When we did the cumulative analysis, the white students knew 31,800 jobs, and the black students 789. Uh-oh. So their knowledge base of the other culture was very limited. Further, if I asked them really what they wanted to do if they wanted to go to college, they gave me the magic 7. Doctor, lawyer, teacher, nurse, mortician, social worker, minister. When we dealt with the white students, they would say, I want to be a brakeman at Westinghouse Wilmerding on the shift. They gave me a lot of very specific information because they knew it. So totally different grasp of the enormity of things and what the challenges were and where they had to go. So this is what I shared in terms of trying to figure out how to desegregate the schools. And the war that we had over all of that was, of all the black schools we closed, of retrieving information because it was simply thrown away. The records were thrown away. The past graduates who had succeeded was thrown away. We have thrown away so much. Further, we haven't always told the whole story of why it existed. Now, where I'm going to go with this is, almost all of you may have had the opportunity, one of the best historical exhibits we have in the region is at the Intermodal Transportation Center in downtown Fort Worth on Jones Street. And if you haven't been there, I recommend you go. We have a sound system where you can go through. There are 6 panels, which gives essentially the history of that particular area. And we had the dedication for that. I've never forgotten it. Because for every panel, there were living people whose families were on that panel. They were there. And the interesting thing about that whole experience was it documents what that area of Fort Worth, East Downtown Fort Worth, was. And we still have Mount Gilead Baptist Church, and we still have those kinds of institutions that are there, but nothing else is there. An interesting question that was never asked was, where did they go? What happened? Why isn't that community here? Where's the hospital that they're talking about? Where's the bank they're talking about? Where are the stores they're talking about? Where are the restaurants that they're talking about? What was that like? Why were they here? What did that mean? Now, one of the interesting things is we had a flood in 1949. Everyone in Fort Worth knows about the flood of 1949. It's the Montgomery Ward flood.
Yeah. But it was the bottoms flood.
But
not
what we
the
didn't
water.
tell was that the bottoms flooded
That was
and
the
an entire
flood.
black community was washed away.
Right.
That's a significant fact. That is important in the history of the community in that it dislocated all kinds of people, moved them to other areas where their institutions didn't exist, did all kinds of damage to their financial and social, economic positions. With nothing on that. Literally nothing. We have nothing about why Polly went from white to black. Why Stop 6 turned from one color to another. We have nothing on the implications of a Hispanic invasion that is now occurring in those very neighborhoods and what that means and so forth. We have nothing on the fact that Hispanics were not supposed to be on the west side of Main Street for 100 years. Those are the kinds of stories that we need to document. It's a different kind of history, but it is the social implications of the kinds of changes that have occurred in our community and their importance. One of the theses that I had when I first came to Fort Worth, and this isn't simply for Black America, it is for so many groups, but I had a group, a student, Joe Vidovic was his name, good Czech fellow. He spoke fluent Czech, never been to Czechoslovakia in his life. We found 700 families in Fort Worth that spoke Czech at home. Never been to Czechoslovakia, but continuing those traditions. And we had active Sokol going in the city. It's gone. It's gone. They were critical in a whole city. We had a Norwegian society, very, very strong. It's gone. And we've lost it. Now, to me, each of those groups have certain kinds of achievements that have occurred because institutionally they had support systems that brought them to where they are today. And to some extent, even their disappearance is as a result of what they did. But when it comes to Hispanic and Black Fort Worth, it's quite the opposite, in that we simply threw it away. So I would suggest to you that one of the opportunities that we have, because I started this whole discussion with that set of panels at ITC, that the heirs were there. And the question mark that I want to ask them is, what was it like? How do you feel about it? That's a different history. Tell me what your impression is. I was at a meeting with Sarah one day down on, what is the name of the street that our museum is on? What is the name of the street that our museum is on?
Humboldt in Illinois.
Yeah. And we were in a home. And what I could hear in the kitchen was a big ruckus going on. And the lady came out and said, because she was talking to her mother, it was her mother's house. And she said, "It's okay, Mom, I know there was a white man in the front room." And I knew what they were talking about. Her mother did not want a white man in her house. And she would, if you had met her on the street, she would have been so polite to me, but I was in her
house,
home, on her territory. And I knew exactly what she was talking about. I told him, 1949, I went to Tuskegee Institute. First white boy in history. And they didn't know exactly what to do with me. So the president, Robert Roosevelt, said, whenever you're in public, you're black. We're not going to have any white boys here. It's not going to happen. And so I learned to understand that. We need to tell that story, in that there is this impression of powerlessness. There's this impression that something didn't happen. We denied all kinds of groups access to the system.
Right.
And then we are surprised that in response to that, they created an entire world. A parallel society that marched right next to us. And now we're paralyzed because we've lost it. And that's had serious implications for African American youth, Hispanic youth, ethnic youth of all sorts. They have lost those models who walked those streets and carried that banner. And that to me is a huge and terrible loss. In that we now have political leaders, but they don't have that kind of message for our kids that they once had that said, stand up straight, put on a tie, wear a coat in public at all times, never bow your head. That's a pride and that's a message. And that's what we need to recognize and understand and somehow find a way to restore. Thank you very much.
I'm going to follow Paul's lead, or Dr. Geisel's lead, and keep this somewhat informal. I do have some prepared notes, but I'm going to just sort of glance at them over on occasion to stay and keep my place. First of all, let me thank all of you, and of course, particularly thank the organizers for the invitation to come here. My name is Marvin Dulaney, if you don't know. I'm on the program. It says William, but I normally go by Marvin, and again, I teach history at the University of Texas at Arlington. And I've been at UTA on and off for about 30 years. I actually went away for about 14 between 1994 and 2008 to direct a museum and archives in Charleston, South Carolina. So I come at this idea and this task of historic preservation with a lot of background and a lot of passion. Let me just say that. Historic preservation is sort of my passion and something that I do all of the time. I teach a public history class, by the way, in the graduate program at UTA. For those of you who don't know, there's been this sort of battle and dichotomy between public historians and academic historians. The origins allegedly started back in the 1970s when there weren't enough jobs for academic historians, that is, those who go in and teach at the university level and college level, who do research and publish books, and then don't spend any time with the public. Well, historians came to realize that all of us couldn't teach at colleges and universities, again, because there weren't enough jobs. So some of us had to work in museums, some of us had to work at the National Park Service, some of us had to help design historic sites, some of us had to go out and do oral histories, some of us had to help put up monuments and memorials, with, again, our expertise in historical research. So I actually became a public historian, and some would say I'm a schizophrenic, because I try to do both. One, I head an academic department at UTA, but two, I'm working in Dallas and in Fort Worth with the National Multicultural Western Heritage Museum, with the African American Museum, because again, I led my own institution for 14 years. And again, that's because I realized, starting as an academic in the mid-'80s, that historians need to go out and engage the public. We indeed had to do the work from a professional standpoint that others weren't doing. Got a story for you. I knew Lenore Rolla very well. All right, and so I worked with the Tarrant County Black Historical and Genealogical Society on a number of occasions. In this particular case, I can't even remember the year. All this stuff sort of runs together after time. But anyway, she called me and said, I need you to install an exhibit down at a bank in downtown Fort Worth. So I called my colleague. I have a partner in crime in Dallas who also does public history. So I called him. I said, hey, come with me. bring your van, we're gonna go install this exhibit at a bank in downtown Fort Worth. So we get over on Humboldt Street, we find framed photographs and different things that Mrs. Rolla had for us to install. But we had no way of installing them because there was no easels or anything like that. So my friend said, well, there's a lot of these doors she has laying around. So we figured out how to put 3 doors together. Again, literally, doors that's that size, and she had about 15 of them. So we were able to sort of do 5 stations in order to mount the photographs and to mount the exhibition down at this bank. We did a heck of a job. We were so proud of ourselves when we finished that exhibit. When we come out and we told the bank president that we were finished, she looks at it and says, okay, now where's the rest of the material that's going to go in the other 2 branches? But again, what that points out, what that says was that indeed there was not enough materials, not enough photographs, not enough documents to do 3 exhibits on African American history. By the way, this is for Black History Month. And so, we were at a sort of aghast and at a loss in terms of what to do since we didn't have anything else. So part of why I've become a public historian is to go around the community and tell you, indeed, preserve the history, preserve the documents, preserve the photographs, collect them, do oral histories, do those kind of things, as Dr. Geisel pointed out, so that we don't lose anymore. We've got to sort of draw this line that we're not going to lose any more information. We don't want to lose Reapy Carey's stories. Of course, he's putting a lot of those out there himself. You all know that. We don't want to lose a story by Ian Terrell. I've had my graduate students do theses on Ian Terrell. We don't want to lose that story about Bill McDonald or about Lillian Hulsey. We don't want to lose those stories. We want to indeed go out and again do oral histories and collect that data. So part of what I've been doing since I came back was sponsoring a number of projects with my graduate students and with anyone who will work with me to collect and document the history. Whether it comes to our special collections at UT Arlington or goes to the Fort Worth archives and at the public library, it's fine as long as it goes somewhere. Or at the new Black History Museum on Humboldt Street. These things need to be collected. But also I want you to take this personally too. Most of us don't realize that we are historians.
Yeah.
We are archivists. We've got to collect our own stories and preserve them. It's important. Mrs. Holmes just told me, someone called her a pretend historian. BS. You're a good historian. And that you're out here collecting the material and telling the stories. We need more, quote unquote, pretend historians. Again, we need everybody to be a historian. We need you to collect your documents, birth certificates, legal documents, marriage licenses, and preserve them. We need you to collect your photographs, your newspaper clippings and articles, and preserve them. I always tell people about the newspaper clippings, though. Copy them on regular paper and then toss the originals, because, as you know, newspaper, newsprint burns everything up. So again, collect, preserve. Take those documents out of the attic, though. Don't put them in the attic. Don't put them in your basement.
Yeah.
Put them in a cool, temperature-controlled place in your house. And if you're really serious, call. You can get the acid-free boxes and the plastic sleeves and preserve all those things. And then tell your children, don't dump it on the sidewalk after I die. Yeah. I've seen this again as a former museum director.
Yeah.
We used to get a lot of calls. They say, "Oh, do you know there's these photographs on the side of the street waiting for the garbage man to pick up and toss?" So we go grab them. They used to think we were scavengers or something because we go get stuff out of people's dumps and garbage cans. But indeed, tell your children, this is important, tell your children what to do with your papers and your photographs after, you will, but when you pass. And basically tell them to don't, if they don't want them to donate those items to a museum, an archive, or whatever. So again, each of you can do that. Each of you can preserve your story, your family history, your life stories. Now, I'm going to stop because I want you to get to the main thing that we're here for, but I'll just tell you about one other thing. I'm working with TCU, University of North Texas, and we're doing a project called Civil Rights in Black and Brown. Of course, don't let the title fool you. It's basically a massive oral history project that we're doing all across the state of Texas, interviewing any and everyone, who's been around here for a long time and has a story to tell. And we're posting it on the website, on the web, so that you can actually look at the stories almost right after we do the interviews. So again, if you're interested, let me know. There's again a website on the TCU site, Civil Rights in Black and Brown. It's a massive oral history project. We've got $200,000 from the National Endowment for the Humanities to do the project for the next 3 years. So hopefully I'll see you at some point. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. That was very interesting. We don't have as many members of our Tarrant County, be sure I got this right, Sarah, History and Genealogy Society. Did I get that right?
No,
Okay, enlighten us.
it's the Tarrant County Black Historical and Genealogical Society.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I thoroughly enjoyed both of those. Thank you. Y'all did it well. If anybody still wants dessert or main meal, we still have food if you'd like to go get some more. But I think what we are here for is for the awards. Each year, Tarrant County Historical Commission gives awards for outstanding historical preservation. Would y'all excuse me just one moment? Welcome, Judge Whitley.
Let's see.
Well, I apologize for being late. It's been one of those days where I seem to be hopping from one meeting to the next and running a little bit late. And at the last meeting, they actually got finished about 15, 20 minutes early. So I may actually be able to get back on schedule after I'll leave this one, since I really planned on being here earlier this morning. I want to thank y'all for participating in this. I want to thank you for everything you do for the county. I think oftentimes we fail to realize the richness of the history and the stories that are there to tell. In the time that I have been on the court, I've had an opportunity to hear those stories from different folks, and some of them have just absolutely amazed me. I remember someone telling me that there was actually a time in the, I don't know if it was in the 40s or the 50s, where they were, some people frustrated with the fact that Main Street didn't go all the way through, all the way out to the north side, and so they proposed tearing down the old courthouse. And I'm just thankful that the commissioners couldn't find the dollars in the budget to do that at that particular point in time.
I agree.
But those are the kind of things that you sometimes miss if you don't have people who are focused on the past as well as the future and preserving the past, so that we can enjoy stories and so that we can enjoy things, to maybe delve a little bit more into why did something happen and why does it look a particular way. And there's usually always a reason for that, but oftentimes we don't remember to write that down or to tell that story or to record it. And y'all are our eyes, and you're the people who help us do that on a day-to-day basis, and we appreciate very much what you do and what all of you do from that standpoint. We've still got a lot of opportunities, and I'm sure there's still a lot of stories that we need to make sure get recorded before we forget them, and I'm forgetting more and more now than what I ever used to, or at least I think I used to remember. But again, I wanted to come by today and thank y'all, and appreciate you inviting me to make it by. So appreciate everything you do. Thank y'all.
We need to thank you and the Commissioners Court for the preservation of the courthouse, and most recently, the west side.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
I will have to admit, I have made the statement a couple of times that 50 plus years ago, there obviously was not a historical commission at that point in time because they let somebody touch that building. And we are so thankful. It looks so, I had an opportunity
Yes,
to go
it is. It's beautiful.
and look at that, take the whole
beautiful.
deal through it. And now you can get into there from 3 different locations.
It's beautiful.
Instead of just the one up the front steps. It is a beautiful building. We're gonna, I think Rebecca, it's 27th of this month. We're gonna have a little,
Art Wyman, is that the correct date?
27th, yes. Art right there, you don't walk in that courthouse and do anything without making sure that Art is aware of the fact that you're in there. We appreciate everything, Art, you do. And I also tell people, the clock tower, that's another thing that is just so pretty. I remember first coming to the county 18 years ago and, asking about the clock tower, and I think it was Debbie Snyder that actually took me over there and got me in that thing, and she said, you can go up as high as you want to. She says, I'm not going up any higher than right here because it was a rickety old ladder. And it was just one of those just ladders that you would, rest against something and then start climbing. And about halfway up, I realized why she wasn't behind me. But now, through a lot of hard work, we've got that looking very, very nice, and we're very pleased about that. I kid and tell people that as I understand it, and somebody in this room will know for sure, when the courthouse was built, it was built in 18 months for a total cost of around $500,000. It took us, I think, longer than 18 months to draw up the plans for the clock tower, and I can assure you that it cost more than $500,000 to just renovate and to bring that clock tower back into the condition that it's in right now. I'm very excited about the way our buildings are looking and everything looks downtown. We've got an angel for sale. We're probably going to put it on eBay. Because we got all 3 of the angels up on the old civil courts, from the old civil courts building. We put 2 on the front, and then every day when I would drive into downtown from Northeast, I would look at the back of that building and say, it's just ugly. And why don't we put an angel there? And so I talked with Phillips, and we were able to take one of the remaining 2 and put it there. And I think it's much nicer than just that blank wall. And there was actually a stairwell in there that you would be able to look at. So we did, and we're able to make that change. So we've got 1 angel left. And we may, eBay may work. If you know of anybody who needs an angel or a big block with part of the angel on it, we've still got those. And I found out the other day, I think that we actually have them stored out on by our elections office department out on Premier Street. Is that Art?
That's correct. They're in the yard by the election office.
And so it was, we were very concerned with whether we were going to be able to get it down or not, but as I understood and as I was told, I guess that what it actually was is these were limestone blocks that were just set up on one another. And there was go ahead, Art, tell me that story.
I was going to say, they were doweled into each other vertically and then tied back with stainless steel ties to the building. The only problem we had was we had to take the inside face off first to release the blocks, to be able to lift them up and take it to the outside. But after the first contractor succeeded with the 2 western ones, then the second contractor, we had the program all worked out for the second contractor for the 2 eastern ones.
That was a neat thing to do. And as I said, you get into that kind of stuff and then you begin to realize. Today, no one would ever dare even think about attaching something to the courthouse that you had to take anything down on. Another interesting story that I will say, and you and many of y'all especially may know this, is because that building was there when we authorized the redoing of the West End, there was not an ability to go in and actually measure the West End to get the dimensions for all of the stone and all of the granite that had to be cut. So what the logic would be that you could go to the east side, do the measurements, and everything would work out. So they did, and it didn't. And so we had actually had the granite here cut for what, a couple of years? And so
Actually about 8 years. This is a long-term project.
It was a little more than 18 months, a little more than 18 months. And so anyway, when it came time to lay it, all of a sudden they realized the puzzle didn't work. And so everything had to be shipped back to the not to the quarry, to the place up, and I guess Minnesota's where it was actually.
Part of it went to Minnesota. Part of it went to Minnesota.
And I'm sure part of it had to be brought, new stone pulled from the quarry. And we're so fortunate in that the quarry that the original granite for the old courthouse came from is still an operational quarry today. And the granite that is on the Family Law Center, as well as the granite that is on the Civil Courts building, and I guess probably the maximum security jail, if there's any granite on that.
And the horse fountain.
And the horse fountain, all came from the same quarry as the original courthouse was built from. So I'm intrigued. I don't go out and, I let y'all figure it all out, and then I read about it, and then I can tell the stories like I really researched this to figure it out. But I depend upon you to tell those stories and to find that information, and then if you'll send it to me, then I'll try to repeat as much of it as I know.
Judge, I just wanted to add that in the course of our excavations and preparations, no matter where we dug a hole, we found something we didn't want to find. Everything from 1895 gas pipes to the gas lamps at the front of the courthouse. We found buckles, we found hinges, we found a city storm cistern that nobody knew was there. All kinds of stuff.
Did you save it?
How do you save a cistern that's 12 foot in diameter and 50 foot deep? You just leave it.
But, and I'm sure you can help me with this one, since the building of the old, that monstrosity that sat on the west side, they had water. You know, as they were building it originally, the water kept seeping in, and so we had constantly had pipes or pumps that we were pumping water out of that basement. And so we decided upon the rebuilding is that if we've got all this water, we really thought, to be very honest with you, we thought this was the old pipes from the city of Fort Worth and that the water was coming out of those old pipes. City of Fort Worth said no, and they sent somebody in to test and said no, there's no chlorine there, so it can't be our pipes. But still, there's a lot of water coming in. And so our facilities folks and the folks that were putting all this together said, well, why don't we collect this water and use it? So we've got a 40 or 50,000 gallon, I guess, cistern or collection.
Yeah, 50,000 gallon cistern. We get 2,640 gallons a day, and it's set up with a control system where we can tap the cistern for irrigation of the entire courthouse lawn, at which time, if the cistern does run out, which possibly can happen in August, but not probably, it'll switch over to city water on the other side using the same system. I was talking with Brett Foreski today about that. They're doing some last minute adjustments on it.
So I'm going to leave here excited that I actually told y'all something that you may not have known. So now you've got some history that you can put down and can keep track of from that standpoint. So again, thank all of y'all. Art, thank you. Joe, thank you for everything that y'all do. And, you know, just keep collecting that history so we can, and, you know, just we need to write it down. We probably need to do a lot better job of writing it down and recording it. So thank y'all very much.
Before we go too much farther, also, we have from the Texas Historical Commission, Mr. Brad Patterson is here. He is the Division Director of Community Heritage, is that right?
That's close enough.
Okay. Thank you for coming. Would you like to say anything? With or without a mic? The judges used to yell at people.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the invitation to be here and help you celebrate the achievements of the Historical Commission and the folks in the community. I've done a lot of work over the years in Tarrant County, Fort Worth, and this whole part of the state, so I don't get up here as much as I used to, but I still have a great appreciation for it. We've done a lot of exciting things at the agency, and some of them directly relate to some of what we've been talking about here. We've had the opportunity to record and celebrate some of the stories from the cultures that we sometimes, unfortunately, aren't looking at all the time. And so we have a Texas Time Travel Tour app that we created and launched this summer. And the first tour that we put on it was African Americans in Texas, which was a takeoff on a travel guide that we created a few years back, but we were able, with videos and things like that, to tell some of the stories that the print guide can't do. We've now combined that with Hispanic Heritage Guide and tour app as well, and a number of other stories, and we'll be looking at the Chisholm Trail hopefully in the next couple of years here for the 150th anniversary for that. So appreciate all of what you do for your community and for the folks that are here. We can only do a little bit as a state agency and from Austin, and it really is how much you're able to contribute to your own history and your own culture. And please call on us when you need us. Thank you.
I would like to thank Devin Wensky. She is the outreach coordinator for Precinct 3, and without her, we would not have gotten through this day, or I would not have. Let's go right on into our awards. Jim Hodgson, would you come up, please? See, yours is not the only name I mess up. We instituted a few years ago an award called the Summit Award for architectural restoration. This year we added structure to that also because we couldn't exactly explain how an airplane is architecture. Jim's going to tell us about the man that he nominated for that award.
Thank you, Chairman. We nominated Bob Simpson. A few years ago at the Fort Worth Aviation Museum, we started an effort to acquire and bring back to Fort Worth one of the very first passenger airliners that was ever used here. It was given to Amon Carter in 1931 in recognition of his support of National Air Transport, which later became United Airlines, and helping them establish their operations here out of Fort Worth, along with a handful of other airlines. The Traveler 5000 was unique in that there were only 14 of the aircraft ever built, and it carried a total of 4 passengers. That was it, 4 passengers. It was put into service in 1926. By 1931, it was obsolete. Now keep in mind the time period that that's taking place. It's through the crash of the market and the start of the Depression, but yet airlines in general exploded. Fort Worth in that time period couldn't get enough people to work there. They were having to scour the area to bring people in for all of the work that was going on in Fort Worth. So Amon Carter had the foresight to see that the U.S. Postal Service made Fort Worth the center for all postal operations that came through the Southwest. So if you had mail going north or south out of Mexico or east or west through Texas, it all had to come through Fort Worth. And that was because of Amon Carter. That airplane, that was one of the original passenger airplanes, began the blossoming of aviation here. We talk about forgotten history, and if we don't know about it, it doesn't matter that it didn't happen. That was the beginning stages of aviation that now is a part of everybody's life, even if you don't know it as much as you think you do. 20% of all working people in the Metroplex are in aviation-related businesses. Yet aviation-related businesses contribute almost $100 billion a year to the economy here. Over 68,000 airplanes have been built here since the 1940s, and that contributed $1 trillion to the economy. Yet we still refer to the area as Cowtowns of Culture, where aviation truly changed the lives and the economy and the culture of the entire area here. So that's why this airplane is so significant. It was given to Amon Carter, and the story behind that's pretty cool too. He took the airplane and flew it over to Shady Oak, where it remained for approximately 30 years, until 1963. The airplane had been just left totally unattended. It became less than a skeleton. It literally was melting into the ground. It was acquired in 1963 by a Continental Airlines captain who took it down to Hamilton, Texas, and attempted to do a restoration and got it not much further in 50 years than just a skeleton. Mr. Simpson purchased the airplane, brought it back here to North Texas, and through a group in Justin called the Cowtown Aerocrafters, had it restored to the way it looked the day that Carter took it to Shady Oak Farm. It's presently on display in the old Star Telegram building. If you're at the corner of, I believe it's 7th and Taylor, you can see it right in the corner. So it is truly significant. We are very proud of the fact that we at the museum had a part in helping bring that airplane back here so that people can be reminded about their history and how aviation has changed the face of the area here. So on behalf of Mr. Simpson, who is in Toronto, I guess we would all expect him to be there today with the Rangers, we're going to go ahead and see that the award gets to get some Morningstar partners.
Could we have Vickie Bryant come up and Martha May Martin? I think most of us know both of these ladies.
I've got a little bit I'm going to share about my friend Martha Martin. Martha has deep roots in the city of Arlington and a great passion for history, genealogy, and historic preservation. She knows her history, especially Arlington history. Martha is a fifth-generation descendant of the pioneer Gibbons family and was raised hearing stories of the challenges faced by the early Gibbons settlers in 1860 and the contributions that her ancestors from the Gibbons, Rose, and Ditto families made to the community and in the development of the city of Arlington. She is proud of her rich heritage and has rallied around the cause for saving many significant historic structures in Arlington, with some successes and many disappointments. Martha has one foot anchored in the past, but is always looking forward towards the future. She believes that historic and environmental preservation should be top priorities in our greatest legacy. And in 1982, Martha completed her first narrative for the Texas Historical Marker at her Gibbons Family Cemetery on Davis Drive. Subsequently, she assisted with the THC markers for the city of Arlington and Top Hill Terrace, for which I'm thankful. At the request of the City of Arlington Parks and Recreation Department, she wrote the family history for a marker recognizing the 200-acre land donation made by her aunt and Uncle Joe and Berta Rose Brown and her mother, Margaret Leslie Rose May, for the Rose Brown May Park, now River Legacy Parks. A major project for Martha, supported by Landmark Commission, was the writing of the tour of the Arlington brochure that guides citizens through the Pioneer Trail with historical narrative about local structures. And in 2007, she helped to update the Arlington Historic Resources Survey. Martha was delighted that the Rose family was chosen along with 5 other families to be honored in the Founders Plaza. While serving on the City of Arlington Landmark Commission, she assisted with the research for the designation of the 2nd Historic District in Arlington, the South Center Historic District, located in the Mayor William Rose Addition, which resulted in the district being placed on the National Register of Historic Places. And in May 2015, Martha was honored to present the district's history during a City of Arlington marker dedication. She has also contributed information for the acquisition of the city markers for the Arlington Post Office, which is now Worthington National Bank, the Vandergriff Building, and the Arlington Theater. And in 2013, the Arlington Historical Society recognized the 150th year of the Gibbons family settlement in Tarrant County. Most recently, Martha submitted the nomination for a marker to commemorate Arlington Downs, and is looking forward to the dedication next spring. She has her eye on honoring many other historic sites in our city that are worthy of recognition. Martha is married to Ronnie Martin, a retired mechanical engineer, and they have one grown daughter, Melissa Rose Martin, which they're both here today. Martha spends much of her retirement with family on what remains of the original 1,329-acre Gibbons homestead in North Arlington, and enjoys expanding her knowledge of local and state and national history. Martha attends First Methodist Church, where grandparents Delia Ditto Rose and James Preston Rose were charter members. In 2014, First Methodist Church honored her family as being founding members. In the past, Martha has been recognized by the following organizations for her fundraising efforts on their behalf: Arlington Historical Society, Cancer Research Foundation of North Texas, Arlington Animal Services, Assistant Dogs of Texas, and Levitt Pavilion. Organizations she's been involved in: Arlington Historical Society, City of Arlington Landmark Commission, the Markers Committee, Arlington Preservation Foundation, Arlington Garden Club, Arlington Conservation Council, Arlington Women's Club, Encore, Alpha, Delta, Kappa, neighborhood associations, and the First Methodist Church Historical Committee and Adult Bible Class. Do you think she deserves this award? Personally, to be able to present her with this award, because she's been a big blessing in my efforts with Top Hill.
And it's so fitting that it is the Tom Vandergriff Award.
True.
Comments. I am just honored by this award. This is truly a lifetime honor for me that I never thought would happen, especially with the association of Tom Vandergriff. It isn't about me, it's about my family. And it's about, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for my pioneer family, and if it weren't for Tom Vandergriff, who this award is named after. So I would like to, if we have time, to make a few comments about my family that settled in North Tarrant County in Arlington by the Trinity River. If we have time, do we, Joe?
Just a tad.
Just a tad. Well, I have the reputation for going on and on. So I will start by saying that in 1856, I think that Tarrant County was having an issue with Birdville as far as the county seat. Am I correct? I mean, it was a major issue, which 3 years, there were votes for the county seat. The final vote was 1860, which awarded the county seat to Tarrant County, of course. But that 1856 date was very significant, not only because of the shootings and because of the liquor that was sold for votes, correct? Et cetera, et
It
cetera.
wasn't sold, it was given.
Oh, it was given.
And my great-great-grandfather was the gentleman who organized siphoning it off in Birdville, bringing it to Fort Worth, so my great-great-great-grandfather could have it there in his store.
Is that art back there? That's art, okay. I should have checked with you before I told that story.
They taught Lyndon Johnson everything he knew.
Well, now I can believe that. But the reason that that year was significant, 1856, is because Governor Peace gave a patent letter deed to a Ruth Brown, no relation to my family. And then Ruth Brown sold, it was 640 acres, sold that property to Middleton Tate Johnson. And then Middleton Tate Johnson sold it to a Mr. Randall, no relation to Randall Mill. Then finally it was my great-grandfather's turn to buy the property, of which he migrated from Tennessee in 1860 to Young County. The census records show that he was a merchant in Young County. There were many deprivations there at that time, if you remember. And so he moved on to Tarrant County in 1860 and settled by the Trinity River in what is now North Arlington, where River Legacy Parks is. That was the 640 acres that he purchased. It was a challenge for him. That property has been passed down for many generations. My daughter, Melissa, let me introduce her. Melissa is 6th generation, and my husband, we couldn't have kept the property without them really taking a part in the preservation of it. There were many challenges. James Gibbons and his son Thomas Gibbons were the pioneers of the property. Thomas Gibbons married a Martha Gibbons, my namesake. And at that time, there were no schools over in the area for Martha's daughter, Ollie, or Martha to go where she could go to school. So he donated 1 acre for, it was School District 49 in Tarrant County. So she could ride her pony across the pasture and go to school. And I'm sure that there were just a few other children that went to that school also. Ollie, Martha's daughter, married William Rose, who was an early mayor of Arlington, and he developed a block in downtown Arlington, one of the first, right across from UTA. As a matter of fact, I'm getting off of the subject, but I had a call from John Hall at UTA. That block is on the National Register, and he said, we would be interested in buying those homes, as they become available. I said, oh no, I said, that's on the National Register. We only have 2 historic blocks and our designations in Arlington. And so I told him over and over again that my grandfather developed that area because it was close to the inner urban. You remember the inner urban? It was close to downtown Arlington. It was only 2 blocks from Abrams Street, 2 or 3 blocks from Abrams Street. And I said, one of the main reasons that he built the that he started that development there was because of Grubbs Vocational College. I said, do you remember what Grubbs Vocational College was? And he said, oh yes. So anyway, with Diane Patrick's help, we saved our block for the time being. So this property, the Olin Gibbons, that was a brother to Ollie Gibbons, was a county commissioner, a Tarrant County commissioner. And as I said, it's gone from generation to generation. We've done the best in keeping it. We've had so many offers, to sell, with the last one being a Fortune 500 company, of which we thought about, and we refused on that one. It is so important, as you said, to keep the records. My daughter and husband can tell you that they cannot walk through the house without stumbling over either a box of papers or some type of historical records that I have kept. I still have the newspapers. I have not let go of those newspapers. I have the abstracts from 1856 for the property of which, when Governor Peace awarded or deeded that property to Ruth Brown. The deeds, the abstracts are like this. And they stopped when my grandmother started selling the property back in the 70s. As I said, we have a little left. I have a Texas historical marker on the Gibbons Cemetery. Hopefully, we will be getting a City of Arlington marker out that way too. As Martha Gibbons said, my namesake, she said, there's something here for every generation. There's something here for every generation of our family, and there's something here for every generation of the families in Arlington. And I can see that was a truth. She had the foresight of, when her husband passed away, of keeping the 1,300-acre farm, which had sharecroppers, 11 sharecroppers' homes. It was planted in orchards. Cattle were there. It was a self-sustaining. So she had the opportunity of selling that, walking away from it, or keeping it. She had the fortitude to keep it. And now we're trying to keep the little bit that we have left, which is, when people come on the property, they say, where did this come from? Because we're kind of a wilderness, and we have Cooper and Green Oaks. We're right at the corner of Cooper and Green Oaks in North Arlington. Cooper was Gibbons Drive, and the City of Arlington changed that to Cooper because they wanted it to go from south to north. So that was changed. And my family has always thought a lot about history. And so my aunt saved the sign and put it up on the corner right there at the entrance to the property, and the city made her take it down because people were getting lost. So I have story after story, to tell about that. Gibbons Road, that was Cooper, was put in by prisoners, Tarrant County prisoners. The road was gravel road, and there's just a lot of history. We are in an area that is literally the cradle of civilization, because Bird's Fort is not far from us. Middleton Tate Johnson, of course, started his plantation over in South Arlington in 1848. We have history all around us. Unfortunately, we did lose our downtown. We have tried to keep as many historic buildings as possible. It broke our hearts to lose the Eastern Star Home. of which there was only one in the state of Texas. We do have the Masonic Home. That was built in 1911. Eastern Star was 1923. We would have loved to have kept that building. We worked very diligently to do so. And all the other buildings that we have lost, even our downtown. As far as the angel that's available, I hope that you don't keep that angel as long as we did Caleb Moore. Remember, it was like, you know what Caleb Moore is? That was locked up in a warehouse for years and years and years, and now it's down in Richard Green. Yes, Art?
I was going to say, anybody who's seen Indiana Jones knows all about Tarrant County warehouses, and because of state law, they have to keep an unbelievable amount of stuff. And one angel more or less is no big deal. Just there and totally
Well, just one more thing. As I said, I wouldn't be receiving this award if it hadn't been for my family and the effort that they put forth to keep the property. Also, another person is Tom Vandergriff. And I have just one thing. I feel like people, I know, just one thing. I feel like people will appreciate this. Tom Vandergriff, our mayor, from 1951 for 26 years. And my family, when they gave the 200 acres for River Legacy Park, wanted to do that while Tom was in office. And so it was given in 76, and he retired December 77. He was a person that everything was we, not I. He did what he could for the city. Our city was located in an area where we were going to have growth no matter what. So, but of course, many things happened with General Motors, with Great Southwest, with Six Flags Over Texas. Arlington has grown from, when he became mayor, it was 8,000. Now we have like 360,000 or so. We had a fundraiser, Arlington Historical Society. We honored all the mayors of Arlington. We've lost many since then. This was a time back, a few years back. And we asked for a bio and a funny thing about your life. And I was chair of the fundraiser at that time. And when Tom passed away, I saw Richard Green and told him that I had that bio. And Richard said, "Oh, can I have it because I am giving a presentation at the memorial service." And so I would like to read part of that because this is Tom Vandergriff all over. May I do that? Are you applauding me to leave or to read it?
No. No.
You will find enclosed the biography and the photograph previously requested. As for what I would consider my greatest achievement as mayor, to quote from your letter, however, I am somewhat hard-pressed to put it into words. It has to do with what I would call a citywide confidence emerging among our citizenry. During those years I was privileged to serve as mayor. I don't consider what happened as a personal achievement at all, but I hope I helped in some extent as the community began to believe in itself. It was an era when, for example, if we needed a hospital, we could build it. Or if we had to have a lake for our water supply, remember our Miracle Lake? We constructed it. If we, never I, if we wanted a junior college to become a university, we had the ability to see that that was done. In other words, the spirit developed that if we as a community wanted something strongly enough, we could reach that goal. I suppose that I'm trying to say that during those years, a feeling emerged that anything was within our reach if we really wanted to attain it. For a humorous anecdote, from my years as mayor, there were so many amusing experiences, but my favorite was with the taxi driver in Washington, D.C., who about a week after the Senators' baseball teams moved to Arlington had been approved, was driving me from a hotel up there to a meeting pertaining to the transfer of the Senators to Arlington. And the taxi cab driver asked me where I was from. I told him Texas. And he said, where in Texas? I told him Arlington, and he promptly asked me to tell him about that guy Vandergriff. He wanted to know about that guy Vandergriff. I told him the truth by saying that best I could tell, some people approve of him and some people disapprove of him. The driver promptly said, put me down with that second bunch. I decided that he would enjoy having told me off directly, so I owned up to being Tom Vandergriff. Whereupon he swerved over to the curb and he told me to get out of his cab. I was so stunned, I didn't move quickly enough for him, and he opened his door and as if to head toward me, pulling me out, I suppose. I assure you, I then did get out. That was his most humorous. Thank you for your attention.
Moving on, Natalie Johnson, who is chairman of the Education Committee for the Commission, as well as chairman for History Appreciation and Awards, will give the next Vandergriff Award to Mr. C.B. Rice. Mr. Rice, would you come up, please?
I'd just like to say a few things about C.B. Rice, and the reason why he's deserving for this award. He has been presenting and celebrating 100 years of Black aviation programs over the last 5 years at the American Airlines C.R. Smith Museum. In addition, he reveals mobile museums that he have of his own about National Black Aviation of Hall of Fame in the museum at C.R. Smith. Also, he presents throughout the 3 different campuses of Tarrant County. He created an original aviation program at Dunbar High School, made presentation to the original Tuskegee Airmen at many Fort Worth elementaries, and made an annual presentation at Bell Helicopter, and served as a historian for Claude Platt chapter of Tuskegee Airmen. And he's also retired from American Airlines HR resources and the headquarters, and also in Alliance. And also I want to recognize his wife. His daughter had to leave, Doris Rice, and give him a hand. Also, can somebody come take my picture?
Now, the oldest award that this commission, well, the one that we have given for the longest time. I don't know how to put that. Rick Selcer, you wanted to do this for a long time. Would you please?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to.
Stay seated, ladies. Stay seated. I know we're all getting antsy. Can you hear me without that?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, oh.
That's even better if you can't hear me, see? I know we're all getting antsy, so I'll make it short. If you'll excuse me for twisting Shakespeare, we're here to praise Clara, not to bury her. And it strikes me, I don't know everybody's I know, but it strikes me that we have to wait too often until people are gone to say nice things about it.
That's true. That's
Or to
true.
recognize them.
That's true.
And so I'm very glad that we're here today to recognize Clara Ruddell. I've known Clara for about 20 years, like almost exactly 20 years. I met her when she was retiring from one career, as a hospital administrator, I believe, and switching to her second career. And I think now she's going to be looking at a third career, but her second career, which is Fort Worth history. And in the last 20 years, I've been pleased to do a lot of things with Clara, helping her and her helping me in Fort Worth history. Now, Clara and I are both Aries. And some people will tell you that Aries are hard to get along with. That they butt heads with people and we're crabby and grumpy. But of course, Clara, that's nonsense, right?
Absolutely.
In her case, it is. Well, Aries are easy to get along with, as long as you let us do what we want to do and get out of our way. And Clara has accomplished more in Fort Worth history and preserving it and saving it than anybody else I can think of as far as preserving it in the last 20 years. Not by herself, I'm not saying that, but in working with stuff. The bell, the Masonic bell, that was mostly, and I'm shortening stuff, but mostly sitting over it collecting dust for many, many years. And the Masonic building, Clara helped bring it to life. And now it regularly tours and is out. People see it. That bell goes back to the 1850s. The bell goes back to the 1850s. As far as historic markers, there's at least 2 historic markers in Fort Worth that I've been a part of. One to McGar Park, which is your first black public park across the Trinity, and Hagar Tucker, who was the first black policeman in Fort Worth. And Clara helped get those together. And when you write a historic marker, those of you that have done it, no, it's not just writing a marker. You've got to get funding, support to get it done. Clara helped get that done. Working with Doug Harmon, she helped put on the Cynthia Ann Parker, Quanah Parker exhibit at the library. In fact, it's been, what, 2 or 3 years ago. Helped get that done. Bill Pickett, preserving, collecting history and photographs of the Stockyards Coliseum. And it goes on and on and on. And it's only because you don't have enough time to hear all of them that I'm not going through a whole list of things. But I want you to please remember and recognize Clara. And again, I knew her back before she was attached at the hip to Bob, back when she was still a Ruddell. But to recognize her for all the things she's done to help preserve Fort Worth history. So now, Clara, if you'll come up. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
We don't usually kill people we present awards to, but in this case, I'll turn it over to you.
Can you hear me without my, well, I'm going to be short and sweet. This is truly an honor. It's always the biggest honor when your peers recognize what you've done. And I can tell you that I have not done this alone. I'm going to recognize just 3 people here today. My husband, Bob, bless his heart, who I take with me everywhere, kicking and screaming. But he is as much a part of any and everything I've done as I am. And then the second person is Doug Harmon. Everybody in the world knows Doug Harmon. I worked for Doug Harmon back in 2000. I kind of started out with him, and he has been my mentor from day one. First tour I gave in the Stockyards, he came along on, I was scared to death. All I could see was that white hat out there. And I thought, I'm going to say the wrong thing, no matter. He was the most gracious. So Doug and I have partnered along for the last 25 years. And then there's Professor Richard Fillmore Selcer, who has really been my mentor. And he and I have had more arguments than you could shake a stick at. I've come out winning on one over the years. But I'd like you to do my eulogy, too. Anyway, thank you very much. Ms. Joe, thank you. And the nomination committee, good to see you again. Yeah. Joe, and
I took a picture with Rick's camera.
Thanks again.
We have one more award that is equally deserved. Carol, would you bring your victim up? This is Mr. Wes Culwell.
I'm Carol Davis from the White Settlement Museum, also involved with the White Settlement Historical Society. I have been working off and on with Wes Culwell when he's had his project involving the trees around Lake Worth. Lake Worth just celebrated its 100th anniversary, and most of us don't think about the pioneers who came to Fort Worth, Tarrant County, White Settlement, and points where there were no lakes. And we certainly don't give any sense, in some cases, to the trees. We're interested in buildings and structures and barns and churches and cemeteries, but trees were very important. Without the trees, there was no shelter, there were no nuts, there were no places to camp, there was no lumber to make all those structures that we had before there were brick companies or asbestos companies or anything else that we built structures out of. Wes has made an incredible study of some 39 very important species trees all around the lake. It's involved the research on the trees and the species, their height, their structure, their age, ownership of the property. He's done, in the case of this book, all the drawings, if there were drawings involved, all the artwork is in the book. This is the second series. The first one was a hardcover book. This is the paper cover book. It's been a 3 or 4 year project. It's also led into the photography of all the trees, research of the trees, dedication of the trees to the Fort Worth Heritage Association to document historic trees, great species trees. It's led into a study of the Civilian Conservation Corps around Lake Worth and into a couple of historical marker nominations. And I would just say that for those of us in historic preservation, it is a reminder that there's something other than just a structure, and a tree has a structure, and it has a place in history too. So I'm very pleased that you've honored Wes Culwell with this award.
You want to go right to look at the family first? Look at the family.
Yeah, it's right there.
Right here.
Could we give one more round of applause to all of our honorees? Once again, I want to thank all of you for being here, and I would like, if you would, Rebecca, we all know Rebecca Barksdale, or at least everyone on the commission does. Commissioner Gary Fickes has very graciously allowed us to have this meeting in his house, his courthouse, which is certainly not a sub-courthouse. This is a courthouse, and I would like for Rebecca to speak.
Thank you, Joe. I just wanted to quickly take a moment to thank you all for being here today. I'm sorry I couldn't be at the luncheon part, but on behalf of Commissioner Fickes, he really wishes he was here today, but he is at a conference in San Antonio. But he's a huge supporter of the Historical Commission, and we just thank you for being here in our home today, our new home. So what do you think of it? You like it? We're very proud of it, and we're just so honored to have you here today. So thank you so much.
Thank you all very much, and have a safe trip home.
I have an announcement.
All right.
Thank you. I know
Sarah
that
has an announcement.
I came from the Rock Island Bottom after the 49 flood, and the last neighborhood that is standing is the Butler housing. And I don't know if you all remember, they told Iron Ripley Arnold, now the word is they're going to tear down Butler housing. I hope y'all can stop them from doing that.